So good morning and thank you for joining the Native Mineral Resources Investor Webinar. I'm Jane Morgan, the Investor and Media Relations Manager. Today, I am joined by Native's Managing Director and CEO, Blake Canavo, and our Chief Geologist, Dr. Simon Richards, who will present an updated investor presentation, provide a company update, and engage in a Q&A session. To ask a question throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Blake, I'll pass on to you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Good morning. It's an honour to have you join the Native Mineral Resources webinar. As Jane mentioned, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Native Mineral Resources. Together with Dr. Simon Richards, Native Mineral Resources Chief Geologist, we'll walk you through the slides and answer any questions you might have at the completion of the presentation. The goal of this presentation is to introduce the Native Mineral Resources team, its strategy, objectives, portfolios, and forthcoming programs to anyone interested in investing in Native Mineral Resources, as I believe in the amazing opportunity and upside of this brilliant company. It's interesting to me, this morning we've spoken to a few financial houses who did not know much about us, but now see that and believe that we're undervalued as we do. Disclaimer for the purpose of presentations, which you can go through at the end of the presentation. Allow me to start by giving anyone who is new to Native Mineral Resources a snapshot of who we are and what we do. Native Mineral Resources is an exploration company founded in 2018 that was listed on the ASX on the 16th of November 2020. We're concentrating on future critical minerals, examples copper, nickel, lithium, that will be discussed in the following slides by Simon Richards. Our assets are spread across the WA Yilgarn region, the WA Nullarbor, and also Queensland Palmerville region along the Chillago Formation, which all possess a wealth of opportunity and will create amazing upside for our shareholders. Key personnel that make up the current board of directors are as follows. James Walker serves as non-executive chairman. Phil Gardner serves as independent director. And I myself, Chief Executive Officer, are all substantial shareholders of Native Mineral Resources and all have a wealth of knowledge to help the business succeed to the next stage. Here are a few of our most important financial indicators. Native Mineral Resources share price is currently 20.5 cents, which is still above the IPO price in November 2020, indicating that our top shareholders believe in our company's vision and strategy and the direction we are taking. We've spent the last 15 months collating what we believe are world-class assets and doing the work to increase value in this company. There are approximately 100 million shares on issue, with the company directors owning approximately 65% of these. Approximately 2.4 million in cash was available at the end of calendar year 2021. These funds will be used to keep up with our upcoming exploration campaigns, which will collect critical data for our geology teams to continue to advance targets to potential deposit discoveries. Investment highlights. Criteria that demands why Native Mineral Resources is unique among small cap exploration ASX listed companies, why it should be on the radar of all investors and brokers. Here's the 5 points. 1, diversified portfolio of critical minerals. Native Mineral Resources is pursuing previously identified copper, nickel, gold, rare earth elements, and petrochemical prospects. 2, leaders amongst giants. Committed to exploring frontier terrains that provide significant advantages for exploration, example Olympic Dams. And that's why we're in the Nullarbor right now. 3, balanced risk profile. Investigate both frontier and established deposits hosting terrains where mineral discoveries is low risk but high potential. Again, Goldfields, Palmerville, and also Maneaters. 4, optimize exploration. Investigate the use of intelligent technology and intelligent geology to establish a competitive edge. Simon brings this to us with the team that he has. And 5, always thinking ahead. Native Mineral Resources is always adding value to targets by identifying previously undiscovered prospects for discovery. Next slide, company overview. Since the company's first public offering in November 2020, Native Mineral Resources has been fortunate to hire one of the highest caliber teams devoted to the company's growth. Our geology team has exceptional knowledge in the fields of exploration, geology, and geophysics. Plans are underway to expand the geology and exploration teams in the following months. Company strategy. A strategic initiative has been put in place by the Board of Directors and management team of Native Mineral Resources, which is separated into 4 distinct components. 1. Rapid transformation from inception to discovery. Native Mineral Resources has more ready-to-hit target prospects after extensive desktop studies on geophysical historical data. Recent examples include the Maneater tenement application and the Nullarbor tenement grant. 2. Smart exploration. Native Mineral Resources business development strategy is to maximize the value of its exploration assets portfolio with smart exploration. The goal is to use the least expensive, most effective method possible to achieve this goal. 3. Tier 1 regions. The third strategic initiative focuses on organic market value growth through land acquisition in new areas. Native Mineral Resources has acquired tenements, areas surrounded by Tier 1 exploration and mining companies. For example, our Nullarbor, Maneaters, and Goldfields tenements are surrounded by Rio, BHP, FMG, and Northern Star, telling us that we are definitely in the right areas. And lastly, critical commodity focus. Native Mineral Resources' final strategic goal is to align with market expectations for future demand for key commodities. This critical mineral includes copper, nickel, lithium, which make up a large portion of Native Mineral Resources portfolios, which I believe is very key to the success of the business. World-class assets. This slide outlines all Native Mineral Resources assets currently awarded, also showing 3 in application that are wholly owned. Native Mineral Resources filed Maneater application in a highly desirable Nullarbor region last month as a strategic move to acquire a large portion of the tenements surrounded by Tier 1 mining companies that are in high demand due to the scarcity of land. With a total tenement area of over 3,000 square kilometres, our exploration team has been optimising the exploration campaigns to ensure the company's operations align with its strategic business strategy. I'll now hand over to Simon Richards, who will discuss each of the Native Mineral Resources assets in further detail. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Blake, and thanks everybody for sitting in. I'm going to provide a quick overview of our projects, but please feel free to either ask questions during the talk or via the question meeting invite, or send us an email at the end of the talk. So what I want to do now is just go over our project areas. We've got 3 main areas to talk about. One is the Yilgarn region, where we have 4 tenements. The other one is the Nullarbor and then Queensland. So in the Yilgarn area, we've got Music Well, which is located just to the north of Leonora in a gold producing region or gold producing part of the Yilgarn. And then we've got 2 other tenements, one Arcoona and the other one Mount Vedders. Arcoona is about 90 kilometres to the east of Kalgoorlie, and Mount Vedders is about 30 kilometres to the west of Kalgoorlie. So these 4 tenements sit right in the heart of the major gold bearing area of Western Australia, and I think we've got some pretty good ground in that part. Okay, so if we have a look at the Nullarbor is less well known, generally speaking. There's very, very few tenements and holders out there. Certainly when we grabbed these tenements, we were one of the first people to go into this area, and that allowed us to grab some of the best targets in that area. And at the moment, or when we first applied, we had Helios Central and South, the 3 tenements which lie in the heart of the Nullarbor. And only recently we've just applied for 2 tenements, which are 2 almost full-size tenements, called Mundra West and Mundra East. And those 2 tenements butt up against the Helios tenement, which we've just finished drilling at the moment. So at the moment we have some pretty good ground both in the Yilgarn and in this evolving terrain out in the Nullarbor, which is becoming fuller and fuller with tenements and tenement applications. Okay, so if we jump to Queensland, NMR has one of the biggest footprints in the Palmerville region. It's a 130-kilometre long section of near continuous tenements in a very, very highly prospective part of Palmerville, referred to as the Chiligo Formation, which I'll introduce in a bit more detail in following slides. And more recently, we've just picked up the Maneater tenement, which sits right over a previously defined breccia, intrusive breccia that we know already has mineralization in it. It just requires a little bit more drilling. And again, I'll go through those in a little bit more detail. In each of the cases, though, NMR are holding ground, as Blake mentioned, in areas where we're surrounded by large companies, including like Northern Star and Rio Tinto and people. So in Western Australia, we focus a little bit more in on this region. The Musicwell project set up here, just north of Leonora. This is our premier gold exploration project. Up through here, we've got narrowvein high-grade gold. Arcoona, which sits over here. We're also chasing gold, but we're also looking at potential for nickel in that area where we've just done some very, very high-resolution airborne magnetics. And Mount Vedders, which sits just to the northwest of Kalgoorlie, sits in an area that's evolving for rare earth elements. and then the Nullarbor project over here. And you can see our increasing footprint over in the northern Nullarbor around the current drilling where we've just done at Helios. So let me go into the Nullarbor first of all. I'm only going to go over the Helios target, mainly just due to a bit of a restriction in time, but Helios is a really interesting target and we're currently drilling that at the moment. So we've already done airborne or drone-based magnetics over it as soon as it was granted. As soon as we got those results back, did the modeling, we set out there and started drilling immediately because we saw this as a very, very high potential target. So when we got those results back, we saw this nice eye-shaped structure. And some of you may know that eye-shaped structures in the adjacent Fraser Range have become hot property because of the success that IGO have had producing the Nova Bollinger nickel mine at their famous eye structure. There's other eye-shaped features in the Fraser Range, and as far as we know, that there's actually 6 now, and every one of those 6 eye-shaped structures has been drilled and has a positive nickel anomaly or nickel deposit evolving in that. So just the eye-shaped structure is good evidence in itself that we're on the right path. Once we did the drone-based magnetics, we defined the central high magnetic part, which is the area that we've just drilled recently. We've taken those drill cores to Kalgoorlie where they've been cut, and those samples are now in for assay, and we're expecting those sample assays to be back pretty soon, in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so if we look at some of the more evidence that is supporting our interpretation of the Helios, it is undercover, so we don't have the traditional soil sampling and all things like that. So we've had to rely on a lot of geophysics and what we've learned from other deposits, for example. The geophysical modeling has showed us that there's a number of magnetic bodies that trend off to the northwest. These 2 bodies that are marked in purple in the bottom left-hand figure, they're the high magnetic bodies that we've just drilled into. We've just drilled into the center of the C1 anomaly, and we'll get those geochemical results back pretty quickly. If we look at the scale of the deposit or of the target relative to other deposits that we know about, on the right-hand side there, you can see the geology of the Nova Bollinger deposit overlain on top of the Helios target. And you can see based on that the scale of the Nova Bollinger versus the magnetic features that have been modeled at Helios are almost identical. And that's a really good sign for us, because we know, well, that's giving us the confidence that that we had to drill there. We can also compare some of the magnetic modeling to the recently discovered Chalice Mining's Goldfields nickel deposit. In the top right-hand figure there, you can see the native mineral resources Helios magnetics inversion. The shape of that is very, very similar to the magnetics inversion that came out of the Goldfields deposit. And so again, like, this is a different style of deposit. It's still nickel, but we have a lot of similarities between the NMR target and other nickel deposits. And again, it just adds to the evidence and the confidence that so that we can do things like go ahead drilling. We're about to carry out some further geophysics on the region, and in 2022, probably later this month or early next month, we'll start doing some EM geophysics and gravity over the Helios to help pin down the next drill hole on that area. And we'll look forward to getting the results from that and get back out there drilling. Something that I haven't gone over, but is actually really important, because we're about to start drilling just at the central target now. We've got another anomaly, another mag anomaly that sits right above a magnetotelluric anomaly. So again, this is a very, very strong geophysical anomaly, but here we're targeting IOCG type mineralization, so iron oxide copper gold style, similar to things like Olympic Dam or Ernest Henry in Queensland. And so that's the style of mineralization that we're looking at a little bit further south, because we've got the geophysics to support that style of target. And we should have a drill there and started to drill very, very soon. And so again, we look forward to getting the results from this really interesting target just further south. So the Nullarbor for NMR is a high potential area. We're currently drilling. We've got a lot of confidence in this based on the geophysics, and we'll look forward to releasing those results pretty soon. If we go over to the Yilgarn, we've got basically three main areas. The Music Well project is made up of two tenements. On the western side of the western tenement, this butts up right against the Northern Stars Bandara project. So we know that there's gold producing and gold mines that have been producing in the past. And those structures, we've just completed a very high resolution airborne magnetic survey over that tenement. And we know that those the gold hosting mineralized structures continue from the west, where they at the Bandara project, they continue across into the Music Well tenement. And the Bandara project is only about 4 kilometers from the boundary of the tenement. So we're pretty close to that gold producing area. And I'll point out some of the results that we've already got from there. The Arcoona, the one in the middle here, that's an area where we've also just completed a huge airborne magnetic survey at very, very high resolution. It's given us some really, really good structural and rock type information. This one's a little bit undercover, but nothing that we can't see through using this high resolution geophysics. And we're pretty keen to get out there within the next couple of weeks and start doing some surface sampling over what we've identified as a new area of greenstones, which protrudes into the tenement. On the right-hand side there, that's Mount Vedders. Mount Vedders is located only about 30, 40 kilometers to the northwest of Kalgoorlie, and it's an area that's developing for rare earth elements. But there's also existing gold mineralization on that tenement, which is the traditional mineral that's been targeted there. So just to show you some of the results from Music Well in a bit more detail, and some of you may have seen this before, but we went out and did a rock chip sampling campaign and have got samples up to about 148 grams per ton gold. That's again given us the confidence to do some trenching. We've now exposed the vein, and we need to now go back, prove up where the gold is coming from, and then develop this vein a little bit further. We've also identified second and third level targets further south on the tenement. T1 is the vein that you see over to the right, the high grade samples. T2 is another vein to the south, which again has very, very high grade gold samples, and we'll do some more investigation on that in the coming weeks. And we've also got a host of gold targets already identified on the western tenement, and we've now got the airborne geophysics to support those targets, which again we'll go out and start doing some groundwork on these things very, very soon. One of the other things that is becoming important is the abundance of pegmatites that are on those music wells tenements. And then last year when we were out there doing the sampling, we were looking mostly for gold, and we're focusing on these high grade, often visible gold bearing samples in the veins. And it didn't really dawn on us to start looking for lithium pegmatites, but there is a lot of pegmatites out there. And I think we're at the point now where these are going to become a serious target. And we're now putting these as a pretty high priority for the next round of field work, again, in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to go and investigate these pegmatites because there is a lot of them on Music Well, and it's in a very, very good tectonic setting for lithium-bearing pegmatites. So that's an exciting opportunity that I think we're finding on this tenement that other people haven't previously recognised. As I mentioned, we've just got some very, very high resolution airborne magnetic data back. We flew this survey at 25-metre line spacing and 25-metre sensor height. What it's done is it's allowed us to see through the cover and pick out targets that are the highest potential on this tenement. Now, Arcoona is located just to the west, like less than 5 kilometres to the west of the Northern Star's Carasue Dam. It's a 200,000 ounce per year gold mine. So we know that we're in a gold producing area. This green unit that runs down the eastern side of the tenement, and that continues down where it's also host to the Kupari Goldfields. And based on the airborne geophysics, we now know or interpret that the greenstones don't stop to the southeast of that tenement, but they actually continue up into that southern area where I've circled that part in green. So we know that there's actually good evidence for greenstones at depth, and there's a lot of geology that's giving us a lot of confidence again in that spot. So yeah, again, we're looking forward to getting out there ASAP to do some surface sampling and prove up where any anomalies might be on that ground. And so we come to Mount Vedders, which is the last one in the Yilgarn. Mount Vedders is traditionally a gold target area, and there's good historical gold intercepts in RC drilling out on the tenement. But our focus is turning towards a new opportunity out there to look for rare earths or clay-hosted rare earth elements just above the weathering zone of the granite, which other companies are actually looking for just to the north of us. So again, we look forward to developing this project really, really quickly. It's only under shallow cover, so we won't need to do a lot of work to prove that up very, very quickly. Okay, so now if we jump to the Queensland projects. So as I mentioned before, Native Mineral Resources has probably one of the best footprints, in my opinion anyway, in the Palmerville region. These tenements were held before. The area is now basically blocked out. There's a lot of new tenement applications in this area. So holding this ground is really, really important. The reason being is because this is probably the most prospective ground for copper and gold mineralization and hopefully the discovery of a deposit. If we look at this map to the right, in the bottom part of the image, you can see a couple of red triangles. This part, or the southeastern part of the Chiligo Formation, hosts a number of copper and gold deposits, including Mungana, Red Dome, Griffiths Hill, for example. So this small section of the Chiligo Formation to the southeast is host to a number of historical producing gold mines. The area to the north that NMR holds, we basically hold the entire northern section of the Chiligo Formation. So what we need to do now is continue to develop our targets and start to work out exactly where the next deposit is up there. And I think the opportunity for discovering a deposit in the northern part of the Chiligo Formation is actually very, very high. We're also successful, and you can see this in an ASX announcement, but we're very successful in the last round of CEI, which is the government funding, and we're awarded a $200,000 grant to, and that's a cash grant basically. So they're going to be paying for most of the airborne magnetic survey that we're about to do up there at the end of June. So we're looking forward to covering that entire ground with geophysics, which will help us focus on targeting and target ranking. So just to highlight just a few of the priority areas. The first one here is Lianne's, which sits almost in the middle or the northern third of the tenement area. Lianne's has had a lot of work done on it by NMR. There's a very, very strong soil anomaly with up to 30%, just over 30% copper coming from those soils and rock chip samples. So there's a lot of copper in this area. There's been a fair bit of shallow drilling, but what we want to do is actually use the geophysics to try to see through a bit of this surface rock and target what is interpreted to be the source or the copper-bearing porphyry that sits just below these high-grade copper samples at the surface. And you can see in that photo, there's good copper. There's mostly malachite in the rocks at the surface. So we know that there's copper in the vicinity. We just need to work out exactly where to put the next significant drill hole in that part of the world. The other really interesting area is to the north. It's right up the northern end of the tenement suite, and it's an area referred to as Fairlight. It's a historical mining area. So we're not the first ones to actually go in there and discover copper. This has been mined historically. We've got a few rock chip samples that we've collected out there at up to 7.9% copper. And there's also some silver and lead and zinc in that area. And this is becoming really, really important target for NMR because I think we see the opportunity in drilling and doing some geophysics to try to pinpoint where that copper is going at depth, because the historical mines went down about 30 meters, and that was about it. So I think we can extend that with a bit of drilling and prove up a resource there, hopefully in the near future. Glenroy is another one. There's a little bit of work done there. Again, it's a small historical copper field, but lots of good copper in rock chip samples with over 5% copper. So there are a lot of gold and copper targets in the entire Palmerville project area. And now it's a matter of NMR basically getting hold of the airborne geophysics at the end of June, using that geophysics, combining it with all of our structural geology, our targets, high-grade copper and gold samples, and all of our known prospects and combining all that to produce what is a ranking of all the targets. And we'll be up there as soon as the airborne geophysics is finished. And we've had a bit of an analysis of that. And we'll be up there sampling and proving up a lot of these targets based on the geophysics results. So what have we got planned for 2022 to 2023 for Palmerville? As I said, we'll get the airborne geophysics done, but then it's straight into the field to basically prove up which one of these are the best targets to then go and start drilling. And I think, we're really going to push hard to prove up the whole Fairlight, Glenroy and Lianne's area. We've also got, up to 60 targets. There's so many targets here, it's almost difficult to know what to do with them. But we've got over 50, up to 60 good gold, copper, lead, and zinc targets that I haven't even been able to go through. And even some of these have over 10% copper in rock chip samples. So we're very, very well positioned to get a lot of geology work done here, late 22, early 23. And as Blake mentioned, we're going to be expanding the exploration team so that we can get all this work done. Now, one of the really exciting projects that we've just managed to get a hold of, this is a tenement that's in application, but we recognise that historically a company had actually picked up this ground and recognised a Beccia pipe, and Beccia pipes are one of the a really popular target at the moment because they're known for having things like high-grade gold. Northeast Queensland is well known for its Beccia pipes, and there's a couple of famous ones like Mount Wright, Mount Lation, and Kidston, all producing over 1 million ounces of gold. Right, so these are very, very high potential targets. Unfortunately for the previous company, they did a drill hole. It was done quite a while ago before we knew a lot about the metal zoning in these types of deposits. And so they walked away. And I think that's given NMR the opportunity to seriously reassess this, the potential for this Beccia pipe. And what this next slide shows is where some of the results, but it also shows where we think that previous drill hole went through the breccia pipe. These types of deposits are often zoned, so they're not all rich in gold or all rich in copper. And what tends to happen is that you get low gold at the surface, but then as you go down with depth, you get increasing amount of gold. And you see things like high lead, high zinc, high silver at the surface. As you go down with depth, you get higher gold and higher copper. Now, the red line there shows where the previous drill hole goes, or where we're interpreting it to go through the breccia pipe. And you can see some of the results that these guys got. 300 meters of that drill hole contains sulfides, right, to varying degrees or varying percentages. But at about 240 meters, they record up, over 80% and up to 100% sulfide intersection. So that's 100% massive sulfides through sections of this drill core, which is pretty phenomenal. They also record and describe increasing copper with depth, which is what we would expect to see as we're getting down through that zoning. And by the way, back when they did this drilling, they didn't have the geochemical and metal zoning knowledge that we now have. So we're at a bit of an unfair advantage because we can see that, okay, increasing copper actually means that you're probably getting deeper into the system. There's also 94 meters at 4.45 grams per ton silver. Right, so this is a very, very high silver anomaly already. And you can see from that diagram that silver is prominent at the top of the system. So what we think is that we're really drilling the top of the system, and that all we need to do is go in, we can use the same tracks and put a deeper hole into the high grade gold bearing core of the breccia pipe. So we're pretty excited about this, and hopefully once it's granted, we'll have the opportunity to get the drill rig there as soon as possible and put this hole in and get some results out certainly before the end of 2022. I should just give some credit to the previous exploration company, because they did actually do an amazing job on recording the geology, and it's only because of that amazing job that we're able to see just how high potential and where this is in the system. So, I won't go into this in detail, but essentially they recorded everything from bugs, they recorded all the sulfide types, how much sulfide was in the drill hole. And I think based on all this information, we're confident that we really are at that shallow level, and we just need to sink that one drill hole into the deeper gold-bearing part of the system. So 2021 for NMR was really a year where we collected information on the tenements that we could. There's obviously some delays due to COVID, but that didn't mean that we slowed down. We've done 2 airborne, fixed-wing airborne, very high-resolution magnetic surveys. We've done 2 drone magnetic surveys. We've already done some drilling. We've done drilling at Music Well, we've done field work. So 2021, we collected a lot of data and a lot of information. And what that's done is it's given us the foundations for what we see as a really busy program during 2022, which will involve very focused and results-driven field work, as well as drilling, right? So 2021 was the foundation building year, and then 2022 is the year where we get all the really interesting results that the geologists like to see. We've got drilling that's going to commence on the central target in the Nullarbor. We've got field work that's going to be taking place in Western Australia in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll get the geophysics done over Palmerville in northeast Queensland. And then on the back of that, we'll go out and do our field work up in Queensland at once it dries out a little bit and the end of the wet season, so we can get around. So again, we've got a really good focused exploration program for 2022, and we're looking forward to getting all these results soon. So what does that mean in terms of the company as a whole? I think now NMR has a very, very good portfolio. You've seen that we're right in the middle of the Yilgarn. We're surrounded by gold mines and companies that are looking for similar sorts of gold and nickel mineralization. We've got the right size portfolio and the right targets on those portfolios. So we're looking for the critical minerals, as Blake mentioned. We're looking for copper, gold, rare earth elements, and platinum group elements. These things are going to be key in key future commodities. We've got a very, very good exploration program. The way that it's designed is to get the most bang for buck, so to speak. So the techniques and the systems or the methods that we're using, even if it's soil sampling or rock chip sampling, it's very, very well backed by the target type and exactly what we want to achieve out of that program. So we're not going to be wasting money by reinventing the wheel or anything like that. Everything will add value to these tenements, and we've already done that. Yeah, and so, you know, the next stage for us is to, you know, to keep going. We're going to add more value, collect more samples, boots on ground, and by the end of 2022, we should see a significant growth in the value of all these targets. And now I'll hand back over to Blake to lock us off.
Thank you, Simon. That was a very informative presentation, just giving everyone and the investors an outlining of what NMR is looking at and what we're about. For me to close off, we've been quite specific in our strategy to make sure that in the last 15 months, instead of being out there with all the financial institutions and the brokers and investors, we wanted to make sure that we put all the information in place and tick the boxes so that we could add real value to all of our shareholders. What we've found now, even as early as this morning, is a lot of these investors, brokers, financial institutions are saying they didn't know anything about us. That's a deliberate move, probably by myself, to make sure that when we got to this stage, and this is why we've now joined with Jane, is to get us out there and get our story out there. And our story is extremely strong. I believe that this year we'll see a significant, hopefully, discovery for NMR, and we're working towards ticking all the boxes to make that happen. But the way Simon has strategically put our tenements in place, we're surrounded by all of the tier ones, and that tells us that we're in the right areas. So I'm very pleased with the job the team has done. The team have worked tirelessly. I'm extremely impressed with the fact that we've got the commodities that the marketplace is looking for, being copper, nickel, gold, and rare earths. So for me, I think that we've ticked all the right boxes to get where we are to today, to enable that the shareholders can see the uplift, because even through discussions this morning, we are very undervalued, and that will change because we're moving to the next stage of our exploration, and we'll start, obviously we've started our drilling campaigns, and that'll get bigger and bigger. So that completes our presentation today. To everyone who has participated in today's webinar, I'd like to express my gratitude on behalf of Native Mineral Resources as Chief Executive Officer of this great company. Native Mineral Resources has started our extremely exciting campaigns to continue to advance targets to potential deposit discoveries. We're all open for questions from the audience. I'll hand back to Jane. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, gentlemen. I might get you to stop sharing your screen just so the webinar attendees can see you. And I'll jump into the questions that have come through. So can you explain, like this is probably one for you actually. So can you explain how the company was funded pre-IPO?
So pre-IPO, all of the initial funds was supplied by myself. So everything that we did, there was no seed funding. I put everything up in the initial stage. And moving into the IPO and even the capital raising, myself and Phil Gardner and James have significantly put in the majority of the money, which should show people that we believe in what we're doing and we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Thank you, Blake. And just sticking with that now. So what are the capital requirements for the next 12 months, and will there be need for a capital raise?
The capital requirements are covered up until the end of this year. We'll probably look at another capital raise on the outcome of the drilling and what we're looking at in the Nullarbor and also with Mount Vedders and coming up to Maneaters. So that's to be determined, but we're looking at those right now.
Simon, I might actually move to you for this one. So of all the assets that you've mentioned today, which one are you most excited about?
Oh, that's a tough question. But which one am I most excited about? I think, look, to be honest, they're all exciting, and you know everybody's going to expect you to say that. But being the first explorers in an area that most people don't even know about, that being the Nullarbor. You know, the targets out there look so good, and you know, we're drilling at the moment, and we've just literally just finished drilling. We've cut that core and sent it off for assay. We're pretty keen to get those assays and get that geochemistry back. And on the back of that, you know, we've expanded our footprint in that area. So, you know, I think this is going to become a really highly prospective region, and it was good. I think it's good. Kudos to us that we got in there early. But having said that, you know, we're seeing new opportunities at Music Well that we didn't even think about previously, because we're so focused on gold, because, you know, huge gold grades and, you know, picking up samples with visible gold is not something that you do every day. But, you know, I really do think that there are opportunities there for these pegmatite hosted lithiums and things like that. So, but then, you know, you go to Palmerville, and, you know, we've got so many good copper grades and copper prospects there. And again, Maneater. You know, Maneater's exciting because we don't have to do really anything. It's a it's what we call a walk-up target. We walk up, put a drill hole in it, and we don't have to do all that groundwork. And as I said, you know, you can't thank the previous explorers, although they have to relinquish it, enough for keeping such good records. And it's on the back of those guys that I think we're going to really benefit from that. So they're all exciting.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, I think that's actually all the questions that have come through. So I want to thank you all for your time today and for joining the Native Mineral Resources Investor webinar. Should we have missed any questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. We look forward to updating the market in the coming weeks. Gentlemen, thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much, Jane.
Thanks, everyone.